Tuned up here. Hey folks, welcome back to Mears Lab. In today's episode, I thought it would be a lot of fun to have a look at the equipment that I use here in the Mears Lab studio. We'll have a look at the guitars that I use and the guitar pedals and the amplifiers, and even a look at some of the equipment that I use to record everything as well too. We'll talk about the settings and how I like to get everything all sort of rigged up here as well. So without any further ado, let's get started. This is the main guitar that I like to use. It is made by Squier and it is a Starcaster. The type of guitar that this is this is a semi-hollow body, and what that means is that it's got these holes here. These are called F-holes, and this part of the guitar right here and right down here is actually hollow. The whole inside of the guitar is hollow. I don't know if you can actually see that. Maybe. But yeah, and the middle part here, it's solid. It has a solid center block in the middle of it right here, and that's something that makes this guitar unique. And compared to another guitar, this one has a little bit more of like a woollier or a fuller or a more of a rounder sort of a bottom end and a tone, and I find that it is. It has like some cool sort of feedback sort of stuff that happens once you get your guitar amplifier up at a certain volume, and it just all around is a pretty general. I find it's like a pretty general use guitar. Like it excels at a lot of different things. I wouldn't say that it is like perfect at any one thing, but it is really good at a lot of different styles, and the sort of styles I like to play, it excels at that. So that's probably why I tend to use this one the most. Let's go over some of the features of the guitar here. The one other than the semi-hollow body here, I really like the pickups on this guitar. These are humbucking pickups, but they're a little different than regular humbucking pickups. These are wide range humbuckers, and these were sort of, you mostly see these on Fender Telecasters from the 70s. I think that they're called like thin lines or thin line deluxes, something like that, Tele Deluxes. Anyways, there's a guitar player that used to play with Sheryl Crow a lot and Frank Black, and his name's Lyle Workman, and he used to use those guitars a lot, and I'm a big fan of his playing, and his tone especially, and he used these pickups in his kind of guitar. Now these are just like stock Squier ones, they're nothing fancy, but they do sound really good, and they are in the ballpark of the tone that I want. And so what they do compared to a regular humbucking pickup is these ones are wide range, and that means in particular the frequency response. It means that you have more bass and more treble, sort of like the tone from a regular humbucker would be like if this was like, I don't know, like the low frequencies here and the high frequencies here, it would be like this would be the range for a regular humbucker, and these humbuckers would be like this, like a little bit more bass, a little bit more treble. So it gives you just more sort of tone to play with, and I really like that because that's one of the things I enjoy the most about playing the guitar is just sort of getting really cool tones. Yeah, but you also got to be careful with that as well too, because there's more sort of tone to handle, so you got to be a little bit more particular with the way that you dial your stuff in. But I like that I can sort of push this thing beyond the ranges of normal sort of contemporary tones, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about these style of pickups. Moving on here. It's got a volume and a tone control for each one of the pickups, and I think that that's really cool because, say, if you like roll back the volume on, say, like the neck and leave it up on the bridge, which I mostly play on the bridge pickup on all the guitars I own, but I do use the neck pickup sometimes, and I usually just keep the tone controls all the way up and the volume all the way up as well too. But see, when I do this, I can mute the signal like that. And that's really great if I'm playing like with high gain and there's like a lot of feedback. Sometimes I can sort of like mute the signal, and that's sort of handy whenever I'm playing like with a lot of volume and a lot of gain. And also it's like really cool effects too. You can like hit a chord, like check this out. Yeah, that sort of cool stuff. It's really neat. Tom Morello does that a lot in his playing with Rage Against the Machine. He does like that thing where he like scratches the strings. I can't do it very good, but he like sort of scratches the strings like that. I don't know. He does. That's a pretty bad representation of it, but that's basically sort of how he does that scratching thing on his guitar. I think he does it more like that. And anyways, something like that. Anyways, I like that you can do that on this guitar. I like that it. I really do like using whammy bars, but one thing I don't like about those is they make the tuning sort of inconsistent when you're doing big bends and things like that on the guitar. So I really like to have a bridge that's like fixed, like this one, because it just means that I get better tuning stability on the guitar. And I think that's important because in general, Fender guitars, Squier guitars, don't it's just a general thing. Don't like hate me for saying this, but I have found that they just don't have as good of intonation as say like a Gibson guitar does, and their tuning isn't as stable as a Gibson guitar. But I don't necessarily really see that as a bad thing either. It's just sort of part of their character and their soul, and I actually really like that about the guitars, you know. But it is a fact of life of playing these guitars, and it's a little annoying sometimes. So you know, you gotta sort of try and keep the intonation and tuning in line as best as you can, and that's one of the ways I like to do it with these style guitars is with a fixed bridge, which is not typical for most Fender guitars. Most of them have some sort of like a whammy bar style bridge on it, like a Stratocaster, if you will. But Telly's for the most part have a fixed bridge like this. Anyhow, that's what I think is cool about this Starcaster is it's sort of like a mismatch of like a whole bunch of different style of guitars, and I love that because I like to play a lot of different styles of music, and so I like that this one doesn't really fit into any one of those styles. It sort of picks a little bit from all of them, and it happens to pick a lot of the parts I like the most from the styles of music I like, which is cool. Okay, so that's pretty much everything down here. It's got like that awesome tobacco sunburst finish. It's really nice. The back of it looks like that. I would have preferred to have an output jack that comes out the front because it really bugs me how that always, you know, hits the chair or couch I'm sitting on, but I could use a right angle cable. I just haven't gotten around to making one yet. Anyways, the neck on the guitar is, I'm not sure of the scale length of it, but I know it's got a 9.5-inch radius, and the frets I think are just regular size, like medium frets. I don't think that they're that big. I don't really know too much about the neck on this guitar. It's just like nothing fancy, glossy, like maple sort of neck. But it feels really good, and it feels like a Stratocaster neck or sort of like a Telecaster neck. And I really like that it's sort of got that spongy sort of feel, and it really gives you a lot of feedback when you like dig into it. It's a great feeling neck, and the intonation is actually pretty decent on this guitar, considering it's just a Squier, you know, like it's not exactly like one of like the professional Fender series ones. But yeah, the intonation's pretty standard on the guitar, and I don't really have to mess around with it too much. It's pretty cool, you know. It's mostly stock for the most part, this guitar. I haven't even really dug into like the sort of deep setup on it yet, but even as it is, it plays pretty good. Yeah, so let's look up here at the top of the guitar. Yeah, it's got a little string tree here, which is cool, to stop these strings from ringing too much. And that's something I like about this guitar is these strings up here and down here, they don't really ring too much whenever you're playing sort of staccato, like that sort of stuff. It's really annoying sometimes when you do that. Like on one of my other guitars I have, which I love the guitar, but one of the drawbacks to it is when you do that, these strings ring like crazy up here. And you can always hear like a little in the background whenever you choke a chord off like that, and it's kind of annoying. Anyways, yeah, the string tree helps with that on this guitar, and it's really nice. It works really well, and the tuners are just like these like super cheap Squier ones, and honestly, they suck. Like they're not that great at all, but they got the job done, and they're good enough. You know, like they're fine. I haven't changed them out or anything. Like I'll just leave them be, and maybe someday I'll upgrade them. But you know, I really like leaving instruments stock because I really like them to just sort of have like their, I don't know, just sort of like their heart and soul as they came off the factory floor, sort of thing. I don't know, you know, and I like just sort of like the natural progression of the wear and tear that happens through its life to sort of represent its sort of character and soul. But anyways, that's sort of just my take on it. But yeah, that's sort of the Squier Starcaster guitar that I like to play here. And yeah. Well, hopefully you dig it as much as I do. The picks I like to use are these green Tortex Dunlop ones. I really like the material because I find that this Tortex, if my hands get sort of sweaty and slippery at all, that the picks don't really tend to slip out of my fingers, which is really nice. And as far as thickness goes, um, I find that this .88 is just perfect for my needs. I find that it gives me just enough sort of like thickness and strength, so that when I want to dig into some really meaty sort of power chords like those low E's or D's or F sharps or whatever, I can really get a like a big punchy transient note out of them. And especially when I'm playing leads, I can really dig in as well too. But also it sort of gives me enough relief on it, like it's soft enough so that I don't feel like I'm like attacking the guitar or anything, you know? Like I feel like this gives me the perfect balance of sort of back and forth harmony with the instrument, if you will. I don't know how to describe it any more than that. It's like this give and take relationship that when you're playing on the guitar and the way that it feels when you're hitting the strings. And the pick is sort of like the apex point between that, you know? And it's really important to get exactly the right feeling pick. And it took me a while to figure it out, but this is the one I've been using probably for 20 years now. And I don't think I'll ever change. It's a pretty great pick. And I tend to play them for way too long. I love the way they feel when they're brand new, but I tend to never buy picks, and I end up just wearing them down until they're basically look the same on all three edges. Anyways, that's the pick I like to use right there. This is my favorite guitar and the oldest one that I own, and I think the all-around coolest guitar that I own as well too. This is the only guitar I own that has a name as well too, and it is named Dove. So what is this guitar? It is made in 1984. It has on the neck plate right there. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but it says S1184. So that means that it was made in the 11th month of 1984. And this guitar, the brand is Strategy by Schechter. So what I can figure is, and there's not a lot of information I could find out on the internet about this, and I sure would love to learn more about it if anybody out there knows more about this guitar. I've owned this guitar for almost 20 years now, but I still don't know that much about it, and I've played all my biggest, best, awesomest shows, and my best experiences and memories were all made on this guitar. But anyways, let's keep going here. Yeah, I figure that this is sort of like a Squier brand. You know, like around that time, Fender had started making instruments in Japan under the Squier brand. And I think that Schechter sort of maybe was inspired by that, and they wanted to have like an off-brand like that as well too, for some more sort of like just regular everyday instruments that didn't have all the upscale features on them. And I think that that's sort of what this guitar is. But it does have some pretty cool features on it. So let's check it out, because yeah, I really like this guitar. Yeah, well, let's start with I guess the weight is it's pretty heavy. You know, I don't know how heavy it is, but it's heavy. You know, like so. Yeah, whenever I get older, I might not like it, but for now, it's still okay. Um, it's I don't know what it's made out of. I suspect maybe ash. That's what my guess would be. There's a couple of chips in it, and from what I can see on the grain of the wood, it looks a little bit like ash, but there's only a tiny little bit showing, so it's too hard to tell, you know. But it feels like the weight of ash. Yeah, so let's have a look at the pickups here. I don't know what kind of pickups these are, but I would guess that they would be most similar to like an EMG style pickup. They are really beefy sounding. Like they are really high out. I wouldn't say really high output, but they're like medium high output. And they've got a really thick tone to them. Like they're sort of like a saturated sound to them. They're not active though. They are passive pickups. But man, they are just so full of tone. They're just juicy sounding or something. I don't know. And it's just I really love digging in on this guitar. Like power chords sound so good on this guitar. Wow. Anyways, this thing is like my heavy tone machine. So anytime I want high gain, this is the instrument I reach for. It's not so great at like that chimey, clean, sort of nice stuff, but it really excels in the higher gain or any sort of gain territory, really. It's great for like even like some lighter rock tones as well too, classic rock stuff, but really high gain stuff, and really woolly high gain stuff. It's really good at that. Yeah, so these are tapped as well too, so you can, there's push-pull pots here for the volume and the tone control, and then that splits them from a humbucker into a single coil. And so this is the one for that one, and this is the one for that pickup right there in the bridge. And just a three-way pickup selector right here. This isn't stock. My friend Andrew replaced that for me because it unfortunately got broken. I had that done maybe a couple of years ago. Let's look at the bridge here. All the hardware is actually brass on this. I can tell because once I had worn it down, I could see like the brassy sort of finish underneath it, which I think is cool. It's just a really simple stop tail. Actually, I'm not sure if that's what you call it. A fixed bridge, I guess. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's rock solid, the tuning on this, and I really, really like that. The intonation isn't amazing on it, but the tuning is really solid on the guitar, and I like that. Let's look at the neck, because it's really, really nice. It's got this great bird's eye maple neck on it. Hopefully you can see that. Let's get really, really, I don't know, hopefully you can see that. But anyways, it's a really nice bird's eye maple neck on it, and it's got this great rosewood fingerboard on it as well, too. The neck feels incredible on this guitar. It's like, it feels basically like a Fender Strat or a Telecaster neck, but it's a little bit more of like a U or a C shape, just a touch. And I love that because it gives you a little bit more to just put your thumb on in the back of the neck, and it just really feels nice in my palm. It's just such a joy to play on this guitar. It really feels unique, you know? It's not like a PRS at all, and it's not like a Gibson at all. It's probably closest to a Strat or a Telecaster, but not quite. It's almost somewhere in between that. Like it feels like, you know, when you dig in on a Les Paul and it's sort of meaty feeling, you know, it sort of feels like that, but it's like that combined with a Telecaster or something. It's cool, you know? Yeah, let's go up here. I'm not the original owner of this guitar, but the person I got it from was the original owner, and he upgraded the tuners with these really nice Grover machine heads right here, and they are excellent. That's probably why the guitar holds its tuning so well, and it's got a string tree up here too. And this is the guitar that I was mentioning when I was talking about the Starcaster that rings right up here. So whenever I can like hear those notes. Well, maybe not. No, that's. Oh, you can hear that? It sort of bugs me. So sometimes what I do is I'll take a piece of paper and I'll stuff it in there, and then it stops them from ringing. Anyways, I haven't bothered right now, but sometimes I do that if I'm recording and it's really ringing too much or something. Yeah, so this guitar has a really neat story about how I came to own it as well too, and I'll just try to keep it super brief. I bought this guitar from a friend of mine who bought it from a really old music store that was downtown where I live here. And coincidentally, that was the same music store that I used to work at. In fact, it was the very first job I ever had was working there. And there was this wonderful old fella named Al that used to own the place. And he had this sort of vault of really cool guitars downstairs. And it had like a lot of sort of lore in the local community because everybody knew that he had this vault of really cool guitars, but he never told anybody about it, but everybody just kind of knew it was there anyways. So like it was funny when people would come in and I'd be working there and I was like 15 years old and he'd be like, "Hey, Al, I heard you got some nice guitars downstairs." And he's like super old and he'd be like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." And I'd be like, "He does have those guitars downstairs." You know, and I was not allowed to go downstairs and look at the guitars. But one time I did actually sneak down into the basement to go peek. Actually, a couple of times I went down there to go sneak a peek at the guitars. And I remember seeing a couple of cool ones. There was like an old Gibson acoustic. There was a really old SG, a Gibson SG. And I remember there was an old Hagstrom, super sweet, super nice, one-piece mahogany. Oh gosh, that was a nice guitar. And then I remember seeing this one as well too. And so once again, I was like 15. First job I ever had was working at this old music store. And I had snuck down into the vault and I saw this guitar there hanging on the wall. But you know, at the time, I think it was like $500 or something like that. And I mean, it might as well have been $5 million to me, 15-year-old me, you know, I couldn't afford it. But I just remember seeing it hanging there and thinking, wow, that's really cool, you know? But anyways, like a bunch of years went by, and then so maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 years or so. And I actually happened to be working at that same music store again, but under different owners. The previous owner decided to sell and retire, and the new owners, I was friends with them, and then it just turned out that I ended up working there as well too. In fact, actually, my friend Andrew, I mentioned earlier in the video, that fixed this switch for me, he was working there too, and he helped me to get the job there. So anyways, yeah, I was working there one day, and then my friend came in and he was selling some guitars, and lo and behold, one of the guitars he was selling was this guitar, and my mind was like blown. I was like just sitting there working in the store, and then I all of a sudden remembered seeing this guitar on the shelf there, and now I'm like older, and like I got a little bit of money now as well too. Anyways, and this guy is selling this guitar, and I asked him about it, and he confirmed that it was the exact guitar that I saw hanging on the wall, because he bought this guitar from Al, the guy that owned the music store. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It felt like serendipity or something. But then get this. This is the craziest part about this story. Okay, so I legit, this is so weird because, oh wow, like, I don't even know how to explain this. But anyways, so I saw the guitar, and then, but like, yeah, I like had a little bit more money, but still, like, I'm kind of like, I'm a musician and I'm working at a music store and I don't have a lot of extra money, and I certainly don't have enough money to buy this guitar unless I'm gonna like not pay rent or something, but like I can't do that. So I'm like, I go home and I'm just kind of like, how am I gonna get that guitar, you know? And then I am not kidding you, the craziest thing ever happened. I went to bed that night and I got up the next day, and anyways, and I got a letter in the mail, and I never get letters in the mail, and this was like, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago, and even then I still never really got letters in the mail. But anyways, yeah, I got a letter in the mail, and it was from my parents, and which was kind of odd because my parents like usually just like call me if they want to talk, you know, they never send letters, but they sent a letter, and because they wanted to make it sort of special, the reason for sending this letter. And I thought, okay, well, what's this about? So they went on to explain in this letter how how one of my great aunts had just passed away, and it's somebody that we never really knew in our family. And they went on to sort of go into a bit more detail about that, which I won't really get into right now. But anyways, the result of that was this great aunt honestly left some money to our family, which was kind of like a big deal because like none of us really had a lot of money, and they didn't leave a lot of money, you know, but they left like a pretty, like a significant amount to me. That for sure was a thing, you know. And I think I got, and so my parents, they what they did is they sort of split it up amongst everybody, and then so that everybody could sort of enjoy this and just sort of do what they want. And they said in the letter that because they wanted to make sure that the money was spent like the way that our great aunt wanted it to be spent. And what our great aunt wanted us to do was wanted everybody to just spend the money on something that they would enjoy. And the amount of money that they sent, I think it was like $500 if I remember correctly. And I was like, whoa, what the heck? Like, how is this happening? And like, you know, like sad to hear that a family member had passed away. But then like this wonderful gift that they had left for me. as well. And then I remembered the guitar from the day before, and the serendipitous story around it as well too. And then I had to work that day as well too. So I like jumped out of bed and got ready and dressed, and I like ran to work, and I got there early, and I called the guy who had the guitar for sale, and I asked if he still had it, and I was so nervous that he had sold it, you know. And he said he still had it, and I asked if he could come by. And I played it, and I said, yeah, I'd like to buy it. And he said, yeah, really? And I said, yeah. And I had the money from from my wonderful, amazing great aunt that unfortunately passed away, but like very kindly left a gift. And it was just the right amount of money to afford the guitar as well too. I think he was asking something like $550 for the guitar, but he cut me a break on the price of it because he could see how much I wanted it. And he knew about the neat story because I told him about it too, and he thought that was kind of cool as well. So anyways, yeah, he sold me the guitar. And here it is. And so it's got a whole bunch of crazy stories attached to it. You know, it's got like some damage that was incurred here, and oh boy, yeah, and when this guitar I got it, it was brand spanking new. Like it was really sharp, and there's been a lot of dings and dents put on it. And so I know I talked about this guitar a lot, but it really means a lot to me. And I think that it's got a really neat story about how I came to own it, and I really wanted to share that with you folks as well too, because I think that stories are really important, and I think that history and I don't know if this is the right word for it, but maybe provenance or something like that is cool with instruments, you know, and you can just sort of like think about the story and all the songs that they played and all the people that played them and all the people that they entertained and all the sort of feelings and emotions and energy that coursed through the instrument, and like the sweat and tears and blood, and like, oh, it's just like, it's really cool, all that stuff, you know. And I love that I have a little piece of history right here that's my own sort of story as well too. And I'll never sell this guitar, I'll never get rid of it, and it'll always be my number one. And yeah, and it's called Dove. Yeah, this is my guilty pleasure right here, this Jackson 7-string guitar. I have always wanted one of these ever since the very first time I ever heard Korn, and I don't even care about admitting it. I don't care about owning it. I love this guitar. I love Korn. I love 7-string guitars, and it feels so good to say it. They are just so much fun to play. Like, how can you not enjoy, like... They're so good. But anyways, like, once you get all of that sort of like, once you get all of that, once you get all of that out of your system, which is really hard, you're like, 7-string guitars are actually really fun when you're recording, and really useful when you're recording. When you approach them sort of like, and you can always have fun with them, don't get me wrong, but when you approach them, and don't get me wrong here, okay, when you approach them a little bit more seriously, and you use them to help fill in sort of the frequency range of your recordings, they are super ultra useful for that, and so good. And this is how I typically use a 7-string. Like, if I, like, a lot of the time I just play it for fun, honestly. But I also write riffs on it, and I tend to, of course, write riffs in the lower sort of a range, because that's like, well, what it has. It has an extra low string on it here, a low B string that matches this one. actually relatively well in tune right now too. Cool. Two basic like high output like Jackson, lots of distortion style pickups. I don't know what they are. This is just like a cheap. This is like the cheapest 7-string that they make. You know, it's nothing fancy at all whatsoever. But it plays and feels great. You know, I think it was less than $300. Like, anyways, this guitar is awesome. I'm not gonna bother talking about it much. It's like a fixed bridge, you know, 3-way pickup, volume tone, very straightforward. I mentioned while I was tuning it earlier, the 4 on the bottom headstock. This always throws me off when I'm tuning the D string because it's on this side, which is really weird because it's usually on this side. But whatever, I'm getting more used to that the more and more I play it. Anyways, this is how I like to use it whenever I am recording to help sort of fill in my mixes. Whenever, say, like I'm playing a chord in a chorus, for example, that is anywhere in between E and this low B, then I will like say if I'm playing a chorus and like it's in the key of G or something like that, then like D, or maybe, oh boy, like even something lower than that, like C or B. That's the best, is when it's in the key of C, because I can hit this low right here, and it gives this like extra octave down below, and it just sounds super thick. Like when you listen to something like this, like even clean, and then you hear that high C on top of it. Then you got the low one in there. But when you record, what you do is, say, like I'll use my White Dove guitar, the Schechter, to play like the higher C chords, and then I'll hit the lower ones on this guitar, and I'll double the Dove, like hard pan it left and right, and then I'll record this one, double it, pan it left and right, and then I've got like layers of guitars that are in different octaves as well too, with like super thick layers of distortion on them as well too, and it's like, oh, it's just heaven as well too. Anyways, yeah, maybe I'll try and, I'm not sure if I'll be able to show you that in this video or not, but I'm sure I will show that to you at some point. If you'd like to see it, just let me know in the comments. Yeah, so yeah, here's the 7-string guitar. I'll keep moving on here because I got more stuff I want to cover. But yeah, I really like this guitar a lot. Oh, this one's so heavy. This is the bass guitar that I currently own and use for all of my recording, and I'm actually looking to upgrade this one right now, but for now, you know, this one works just fine. I'd like to get into a 5-string so I can get those really nice low notes in there. I think I'm going to go with one of the Stingray Ernie Balls for that, but haven't figured out how to get into it just yet. Anyways, let's get back to talking about this one. So this is an old bass I got from a friend of mine, and I didn't pay too much for it, but he fixed it up. It was in super rough shape before he got to it. Once again, this one came from my friend Andrew. He's really helped me out a lot over the years. He's a really good fella. Anyhow, yeah, it's like this old Yamaha BB 300 bass. It, like, honestly, it feels pretty good, and it sounds pretty good, and it plays pretty good too, you know? So I don't really want to get rid of this bass, but I really would like to have a 5-string. And I find that, like, the tone of this bass is very Yamaha-ish, you know? Anybody out there who's played a Yamaha bass knows exactly what I'm talking about, because their basses always have the same sort of sound to them. In fact, I find, like, a lot of Yamaha instruments sort of have, like, a sort of Yamaha-ness to them. And it's like, if I could describe what the Yamaha-ness is, it's like not too much of any one thing. It's like sort of like the jack of all trades sound, if I could describe it. It's pretty good, you know, don't get me wrong. It's not bad or anything. I love Yamaha, and I love Yamaha acoustics especially, you know, but there's something about them. I think that they've always sort of sound quirky, you know. They're never they're always, even when they're really good, they're never really quite like, yes, you know, like they're always like, yes, but that's what I find Yamaha stuff is like. Now that's not a bad thing. I like that, you know. I think that it gives them sort of more character, you know. Like compared to like I don't know, like a Gibson Songbird or like a Hummingbird is like you hit that and it's just like, phew, that is an acoustic guitar, you know, or like a really nice Martin or like a D28 or like a super nice Taylor, like something in like or like you know, like even like some like other guitars that don't necessarily have to be in that price range, like some Simon and Patrick's really sound super good. You know, there's like lots and lots of really nice sounding ones. Like Epiphone makes some really great sounding ones too, and Yamaha makes tons of great sounding acoustic guitars. But there is a Yamaha-ness to the tone, and I personally just love that Yamaha-ness to them. Well, I went to go plug this one in. I forgot it doesn't plug in. Yeah, luckily it's pretty well in tune. I don't really feel like tuning it. Yeah, this is the only acoustic guitar that I own and use right here. This is an old Fender, what is it, a CD? No, a DG8S NAT, which is natural. This is just like a super affordable entry-level Fender acoustic guitar. But Fender somehow managed to, and in this period of when this guitar was made, which I don't think they make it anymore, but it was made, oh boy, when was this guitar made? I don't know, like, probably like 10, 15 years ago, sort of like early to mid 2008, 2010 sort of period. Anyways, they were making these guitars that came like in these sort of starter kits, and I think that they came with like a gig bag and a tuner and a couple other accessories for something like at the time like $300 or $269, something like that. But they somehow managed to like pack a lot of really cool features into the guitar for that price. Like it's got a solid spruce top on it, and the wood grain is beautiful on it. Like it's really nice and straight, and it's like really nice and like wide grain on it. Like it's gorgeous. The grain on the top of this guitar. It's got a nice mahogany neck on it right here. I'm not sure what it is, the back and sides. It's probably, I don't think it's mahogany. It might actually be, but it's certainly not solid back and sides. It's definitely laminate back and sides on it, you know. But the top is solid, and but it's got Grover machine heads on it that it came right from the factory as well too. I don't know how they managed to like stick a solid top and Grover machine heads on an acoustic with a bunch of accessories for less than $300, but they somehow did. Anyways, and I got this one here. It's got a bunch of damage down here. It's got like a big bunch of dings and stuff like that. You know, I haven't really taken very good care of it over the years. I've taken it to a lot of beaches and a lot of like campfires and sort of stuff. And the guitar, it's sort of like, it doesn't sound really amazing, you know? Anyways, yeah, it doesn't like sound incredible or amazing or anything, but it does sound pretty good, and I think that it sounds good enough, especially when it's got a brand new set of strings on it. Maybe that are just like a day or two worn in or something. Yeah, it's got a pretty decent tone to it, and it's good enough. And I find that this sort of guitar with these features, like, it's good enough so that I feel satisfied with my acoustic sounds, and, you know, I know that it's going to take like a lot of money to get something that's going to be significantly better than this. And since I don't really play acoustic a whole lot, I feel like this is just fine for what my needs are. Although I really would like to have, honestly, a really nice Yamaha acoustic guitar. Or maybe like a Taylor would be really nice. I don't know, you know, but like it's so hard. I've really been wanting to upgrade my acoustic all these years for such a long time, but I just never really seem to get around to it, you know, because this one's just so darn good. Like I just, you know, it's just one of those things, you know. But anyways, that's not really something to complain about. Like I'm really fortunate to have a great guitar that looks like this and sounds like this, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a nice little guitar, you know. Well,
that wraps up today's video where we covered the guitar rig that I use in the Mears Lab home studio. I hope you enjoyed it, folks, and if you did, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the Mears Lab channel for more as well, too. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.